Hello and welcome back. That's if you've come back, because this is part 2 of repairing and rebushing a striking and chiming clock. If you haven't seen part 1, it will be out there somewhere. So this is where we got to yesterday, and I've got to rebush this pivot hole. It occurred to me last night that you might not have a clue what I'm talking about when I'm talking about rebushing. Basically what we've got to do is drill a big hole here, press a new bit of brass in it and put a new pivot hole in it for the pivot of the centre wheel, in this case of the clock. Now the critical thing about rebushing a clock plate is to get this pivot hole exactly where it should be. Now that might sound easier than it is, because where this hole has worn and it's gone oval in shape, trying to drill this out can be a little bit difficult. To try and do it freehand with a twist drill would be very difficult, if not impossible. So it needs to be clamped and set up so that we can drill a bigger hole here, push a piece of brass into it and make sure that the pivot hole ends up in exactly the right place. So I've got a tool that I made some time ago. I'll show you that. I'll just get it out of the cupboard. There you go. One of the advantages of having a little workshop. So this is the pivoting tool jig really that I made some years ago. It's not really my design. There are plenty out there, plenty of commercial versions. I'll move over to the little drill press which is behind the camera. I'll set the camera up in a different place and show you how to set this up and how we put the clock plate on it and what we actually do. This is my version of it. Like I say, there are plenty that are commercially available. They're generally quite expensive. There's a KWM one, there's a Burgeon one, there's a few out there. And basically I made this one to suit this little Clark drill press I've got, which I probably bought 25 odd years ago. But it's a remarkably accurate little drill press. And basically this has just got some 8mm stud, and that fits onto the base of the drill press and is held in place with wing nuts. So it's roughly setting the drill at the moment. You've got these two plates which the clock plate will eventually sit on, and this middle piece which is flush with these two. This is actually a detachable bit. You can have different sizes. This is a 5.2mm hole in here, which is plenty for what I want at the moment. So the first thing to do is to get this lined up with the centre of the drill, with the actual chuck of the drill. So I'll just put the 5.2mm bit in there upside down, so I've got the shaft there. Bring the drill bit down until it engages into the hole, and then tighten up the wing nuts. Now that bit's ready to go. So now I'm going to put the clock plate in here and do pretty much the same thing, but with a much smaller drill. I've already measured this pivot hole and it's 1.6. I'll probably get it over maybe a little bit bigger than that. No, 1.6 is as big as I can get away with in there. Now the critical thing is to make sure you line this up with where any part of the old original hole that was there. You don't want to be lining it up with in the worn bit of the hole. And the only original bit of the hole I've got, and this has been rebushed before, so I've got to rely on someone else's work slightly here, but just at the back of this X there is where I want to line this drill bit up. So again, I just put that in the chuck upside down. These two wings are completely adjustable, this one and this one. Let's move the clamps out of the way a bit. And just slide that in on top. With these, eyeball it, bring the drill bit down. And now I want to line this drill bit up, pressing that against the original bit of the hole that was the pivot hole, and then using these clamps clamp it in place. And there you go. Right, I've zoomed that in a bit on there so that you can see it a bit clearer. Unfortunately the handle's in the way of that, but that drill bit's going down pretty much exactly where the old hole is. So now I can take the drill bit out. Now this is all clamped in and fixed, so we can now go ahead and drill a hole. Now this is one of the drill bits I made for this when I made the actual thing. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, but it's got quite a steep point in it. That helps with making sure that it just drills and takes the metal away, and it won't try to follow any holes that are already there. And the rest of it has got a slight taper on it, and when I make the bush for this, I'll match the taper to this drill. This other drill that I made with it is for doing the oil sink later on. Just make sure I've got enough travel. Plug the drill in and we'll be off. Okay, I'm just going to move the camera around to the other side because my arm is going to be completely in the way there. Okay, hopefully that's a bit clearer. I'm just going to switch it on. And gently peck drill the way through to the hilt of the Right, so that's the first bit done. Now we've got to go over to the lathe and make a bush. I've got the compound slide of the lathe set to 2.5 degrees, which is the angle, the taper angle that my drill bit was made to. I don't need to be that far out. So now I'm going to face the end off, put the taper on it, and then drill a pilot hole up through the middle. Now lathe motor. I used to have a little sewing machine motor on here and it packed up recently. I need to get a new one because this one I've got cobbled up on a little speed controller, which is not as convenient as my old foot operated one was. So I'm just going to square the end off. That's better. And now I'm just going to take with the top slide that taper, and that's all that's needed for that bit. So now I want to drill a centre hole in there and then cut a little piece off. So to mark the centre of the bush, I'm going to use this centering tool. I did do a video on making one of these a little while ago, if you want to look it up. This you just put on, and this will find the centre itself. And that will give us enough of a pip in there to get a drill into. I've got a 1.4mm drill because I want this hole undersized. I'll bring it to size by hand with cutting broaches and polish it later on to fit it to the pivot. But for now I've got this 1.4mm drill in a hand chuck. I've already made the centre pop. Typically I had the bluntest drill in the box.
I should find a better tin vise.
that should be deep enough. So now we're back at the drill press. There's the little pivot we've just made, the little bush we've just made. And now all I'm going to do is I'll take the bit out of the chuck, pop this in the hole, and I'll just use the chuck which of course don't reach. I'll just use the chuck and a little adjustable spanner to press that in, and now that's pressed home. There is a reason for doing this from the inside of the plate, and obviously with the taper that can never come out through the front of the plate. If it did get loose it could come out through the back, but it couldn't go anywhere, so there would never be a disaster. So now that's obviously a little bit proud, hopefully it's a bit proud the other side too. I need to file and paper that off, and I'll see you back at the bench. Right, so we're back at the bench. I've got that stoned and filed flat with a back plate. It's rough for the other side, but I've got to put the oil sink in there yet, so that will get taken out when I do the oil sink. But now we've got to use little cutting broaches. These are 5-sided cutting broaches. Basically we use these by going in and spinning it, and that will cut the brass. And we do that and keep trying the pivot there. What I want is a really tight fit with a cutting broach. Then we use another type of broach to polish it. I think that one's a bit too big. Yeah, that one's too big. I'm just going to put a handle on this broach. So we just spin the broach in, and that's going deeper and deeper. These are tapered, these broaches, so as you go in, the hole's getting bigger and bigger. Got to be careful you don't overdo it, and you need to go in from both sides. And keep on trying the pivot that's going in the hole. That's quite close now. Tiny bit more. very close and really don't want to overdo it at this stage. Right, that's it. That's a nice tight fit in there. So now and use a polishing brooch and polish the inside of that hole. Again, doing it from both sides. And this has two effects. Obviously it polishes the hole, makes it very smooth, but the friction will also harden it slightly, just case harden the edge, which makes for a longer wearing bearing service. That's a good fit in there now. Now if you remember before, that was nearly tipping up and actually touching the side of the plate. Obviously got a little bit of play in it, it's got to have play or it won't move. But I do want to just put the two clock plates together before I go and finish it off. Nut back on there or I'll lose it. And the point of that is just to spin the wheel just to make sure it's running concentric and that the hole was in the right place. I'll see if I can get a close up of that. Right, so now we just need to take this back over to the drill press and finish the outside of the plate off with an oil sink. So it's the same procedure again, except we're going to be using the plate up the other way this time. And I'll get the 1.6mm drill. Put that down the hole and clamp it up. Excuse me. Take that out. Put him back in his hole. Right, now I'm going to use this bit. and drill this out till I've got a nice little oil sink there. And again, it's back to the bench to clean it up. Right, so that's the new bush all cleaned up. Hopefully, well, definitely in the right place, because I've tried it between the plates. It all seems to be alright. Obviously the plate's going to need cleaning, as is the rest of the clock, which I should have been cleaning while I was doing this, but didn't. I'll see if I can get some close-ups of it on my little digital magnifying camera here. I would have liked it to have been a bit better than that, but unfortunately that's partly where the old bush was put in there. And this is the other side. I'll put the wheel back up there. I don't know how well that's picking it up. So just to go over a point I made back when I was bushing it, the fact that this has got a taper going that way, going through to the back of the plate from the inside, means it's pretty much impossible for this bush to come out through that way. And even if it did get loose and tried to come out with the taper, it couldn't, because the shoulder of the pinion would stop it coming right out. This would hit the other plate, so there can't be any devastating accidents if you rebush a clock and you make sure you taper it from the inside out. It's always going to stay there, whatever. And that's the point of that. Right, well, that's about it for this one. I'm afraid it's going to have to be a 3-part video series, whatever you want to call it, because I'm a bit knackered and I'm going down to watch a bit of telly. So if you're still with me, I'll see you in part 3. Right, well, I was going to make this a 3-part video, but there's not really much point to that, I don't think. It's only reassembling it. Here it is, it's all back together, it's all cleaned. It's been through the ultrasonic tank, I've cleaned it by hand, it's all back together. I'll just give you a quick view of the front when it strikes. It'll be striking in half now. So I've got the chimes all in the right order. I've got all the notes in the right order, and they're all coming out in the right order. And that's it striking. The hand's not in the right place, but that's just because I've just stuck it on there so I can move it about. I'll just get a quick view of the back. Take the chimes away. Here you go. This is an old Perryvale clock, made in England, probably 40s or 50s this one. But that's it, so that's all that remains now is to get it back in its case. So I'll show you an old clockmaker's trick now. Get if you do this with your hands, go back in your case. Wazoo! Eat your heart out, this old Tony. Even I can do magical mystery video tricks, even if they're not all that clever. So I was going to turn this into a 3-part video, but there weren't really enough to do that. She's all back in her case, ready to go home now. And I've tagged a bit of time-lapse video on the end of here for anyone who wants to watch it, of me reassembling it. So that's it for this one. I'm thinking of doing another channel called Kitchen Table Clock Repairs, where I might just do clock repairs on it. It's not really in keeping with what I normally do in the shed, so if you're interested in the clock repairs, look out for that one. See you again. Bye for now.